The Galactic Council meeting chamber had never been so quiet. 47 species, representing the most advanced civilizations in the known universe, sat in stunned silence as the holo display showed the Vex-carry warships approaching our outer colonies. "Well," Grand Ambassador Zeloth finally said, his voice dripping with sarcasm that needed no translation through our universal communicators, "this is just wonderful. 10,000 years of peace, prosperity, and scientific advancement, and we are about to be wiped out by space locusts." I, Trazax of the Quillian Federation, third-ranked diplomat, shifted uncomfortably in my seat. The Vex-carry were no laughing matter. They consumed everything. Planets, moons, asteroids, space stations. Their massive world ships broke down all matter into base elements and used it to replicate themselves. They weren't evil in the traditional sense, they simply existed to expand. Unfortunately, we existed too, and they didn't seem to care. Ambassador Zura of the Ominar Syndicate, please update the Council on our military capabilities, said Prime Counselor Norix, her 4 upper limbs twitching nervously. Zura stood, her luminescent skin pulsing with stress patterns. Our combined fleets have engaged the Vex-carry at 7 different conflict points. We've lost 83% of our capital ships. The remainder are regrouping at Centauri Hub, but simulations give us less than a 12% chance of stopping their main fleet. 12%? Ambassador Plex laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the chamber. I remember when we were worried about trading tariffs with the Bell-Toran Mercantile Union. Those were the days, weren't they? This is no time for nostalgia, snapped Ambassador Krex, his reptilian features contorted into what his species considered a serious expression. We need solutions, not reminiscence. I watched as the greatest minds in the galaxy argued uselessly. The Bell-Torans wanted to negotiate, despite 17 previous failed attempts. The Jurgen Collective suggested hiding in pocket dimensions, ignoring the fact that the Vex-carry had sensors that could detect trans-dimensional rifts. The Zolarans proposed unleashing an engineered supervirus, conveniently forgetting that the Vex-carry weren't biological entities in any traditional sense. There is one option we haven't discussed, said Ambassador Aetna so quietly that the chamber almost missed it. The ancient Volturian rarely spoke at council meetings, but when she did, everyone listened. What option? Demanded Prime Counselor Norix. Aetna's eyes, milky with age, somehow focused intensely on the central table. We could ask the humans for help. The resulting uproar was immediate. Half the chamber erupted in protests, while the other half demanded explanations. I sat frozen, hardly believing what I'd just heard. Humans. The species we had all agreed to quarantine 200 years ago. The species deemed too dangerous to join the galactic community. Are you insane? Ambassador Krex shouted, his ceremonial collar flaring. The humans? Why not just blow up our own planets and save the Vex-carry the trouble? They are resourceful, Aetna countered calmly. They are barbaric, Krex replied. They went from discovering atomic energy to weaponizing it in less than 3 years. Their entire history is written in the blood of their own kind. Ambassador Zeloth leaned forward. Yes, and imagine what they might do to an enemy that threatens not just their nation-states, but their entire species. This gave the chamber pause. I found myself inadvertently calling up what limited data we had on humans. Most species had a linear technological progression, developing agriculture, then writing, then basic machines, then advanced technology, then space travel, then FTL capabilities. Humans? They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in 66 years. From discovering the theoretical basis of nuclear fission to building working reactors in 5 years. And from postulating the existence of genetic code to editing it in less than a century. They were terrifyingly adaptive, and creative, and unpredictable. When we discovered them, Aetna continued into the quiet chamber. They had already fought 2 global wars and developed weapons that could render their entire planet uninhabitable. Yet they had also created art that moved our research teams to tears. Composed music that provoked emotional responses, even in species with no auditory artistic tradition, even written literature that somehow resonated across completely different evolutionary paths. They are contradictory. They are dangerous, Krex insisted. There's a reason we put warning beacons around their solar system. Yes, said Prime Counselor Norix slowly. But perhaps what we need right now is dangerous. I found myself assigned to the delegation, not because of any special qualification, but simply because I had recently catalogued our limited information on human culture and biology. That, and no higher-ranking diplomat wanted the assignment. If things went badly with the humans, better to sacrifice a third-ranked nobody like me. Our ship dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system. The warning beacons were still in place, broadcasting the same message in 2,000 languages: danger. Quarantined species, do not approach. Ironic, isn't it? Said Captain Lorix as we passed the beacons. We put those up to protect the galaxy from them. Now we are hoping they can protect the galaxy from something worse. Our small diplomatic vessel approached the fourth planet, Mars. Humans had established colonies there, according to our long-range observations. Better to make first contact away from their homeworld, our superiors reasoned. If things went badly, at least Earth would be spared. Receiving transmission, our communications officer reported, sounding surprised. It's in perfect galactic standard. How is that possible? I asked. We've never made contact. Play it, ordered Ambassador Kizan, the leader of our desperate mission. A human face appeared on our view screen. Female, I thought, though I wasn't entirely sure. Their sexual dimorphism was subtle compared to some species. Greetings, visitors, she said. I'm Director Maya Quinn of the Mars Colonial Defense Force. We've been expecting you. Ambassador Kizan's mouthparts clicked in surprise. You've been expecting us? Oh yes, she replied with a small upward curve of her lips. We detected your ship the moment it entered the system. Actually, we've known about the galactic community for nearly 100 years. This was impossible. Our quarantine had been perfect. No contact, no transmissions, nothing that would alert them to the existence of intelligent life beyond their world. How? Ambassador Kizan managed to ask. We listen, she said simply. And we watch, and we learn. Your observation satellites? We hacked them decades ago. Your warning beacons? We decrypted the signals. Your research vessels that stay just at the edge of our system? We've been monitoring their communications. I felt my 4 hearts beating rapidly. This was bad. Very bad. Please don't look so worried, Director Quinn said, and I realized she was addressing me specifically. If we wanted to break quarantine, we could have done so by now. We've respected your decision, even if we don't agree with it. But let's not pretend this is first contact. Now, why don't you tell me why the Galactic Council has finally decided to come knocking? The landing bay of the Mars Colonial Defense Headquarters was populated with more humans than I had expected to see. They watched our delegation with undisguised curiosity as we were escorted through gleaming corridors to a conference room. Director Quinn was waiting for us, along with several other humans in different uniforms. She introduced them as General Takeo Ibuki, Dr. Layla Jackson, and Ambassador Connor O'Malley. Ambassador? I questioned before I could stop myself. Yes, O'Malley replied with a sound that I would later learn was called a chuckle. We've had an extraterrestrial diplomatic corps ready for nearly 50 years. Optimistic of us, I know, but we like to be prepared. Once seated, Ambassador Kizan explained our dire situation, the Vex-carry threat, our military losses, and the impending doom facing all civilized species. During the explanation, I watched the humans carefully. They showed none of the fear or panic that had gripped the Galactic Council. Instead, they seemed interested, almost excited. When Ambassador Kizan finished, Director Quinn nodded thoughtfully. So you've come to ask for our help in fighting an enemy that your combined forces, representing 47 advanced spacefaring civilizations, cannot defeat. An enemy that has already destroyed hundreds of your worlds and shown no interest in communication or negotiation. That is correct, said Ambassador Kizan, his voice modulator conveying our desperation. And you quarantined us because you thought we were too violent and unpredictable, General Ibuki said, his face expressionless. The quarantine was a precautionary measure, Ambassador Kizan said carefully. Dr. Jackson laughed, a sharp, sudden sound. A precautionary measure. That's diplomatic speak for we were terrified of you, isn't it? None of us responded, which was answer enough. Well, Ambassador O'Malley said, leaning back in his chair, it seems the galaxy has need of our particular talents after all. You will help us? I asked, unable to contain my surprise. Of course we will help, Director Quinn said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. We are humans. Fighting impossible odds is practically our species' hobby. As our delegation left the conference room, I found myself walking alongside Dr. Jackson. Why? I asked her. Why would you help us when we isolated your species from the galactic community? She looked at me with an expression I couldn't interpret. You know what's funny about humans? We love a good redemption story, especially when we get to be the heroes. But the risk is enormous, she finished for me. Catastrophic even. That's what makes it interesting. Interesting, I echoed, bewildered. Absolutely, she replied. You see, Trazax, humans have a saying, may you live in interesting times. It's considered a curse, actually. But the truth is, we thrive in interesting times. We've spent our entire evolutionary history adapting to one catastrophe after another. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, the pandemics, climate shifts, you name it, we've survived it. Compared to our own history, this Vex carry threat is just Tuesday. I didn't understand the reference, but her confidence was both reassuring and terrifying. Within hours, human ships were being prepared for departure. Not just military vessels, I noticed, but civilian ships as well. Mining operations, scientific vessels, even what appeared to be retrofitted cargo haulers. When I questioned this, General Ibuki explained their strategy. The Vex carry consume everything, right? Turn matter into more of themselves? Well, two can play at that game. Our mining ships can break down asteroids faster than they can. Our fabricators can repurpose materials on the fly. And every human ship captain has something the Vex carry don't. What's that? I asked. Imagination, he replied with a predatory smile, and a burning desire to test themselves against worthy opponents. You've unleashed something you don't fully understand, Trazax. I hope you are prepared for the consequences. As I watched hundreds of human vessels prepare for departure, I wondered if we had made a terrible mistake. But with the Vex Kari advancing, what choice did we have? Prime Counselor Norix's words echoed in my mind. Perhaps what we need right now is dangerous. The humans were certainly that. The question was, dangerous to whom? The human fleet departed Sol system with unprecedented speed. Within 24 Earth hours, they had assembled a force of over 3,000 vessels. I observed their operation from aboard the Phoenix Dawn, the human flagship commanded by Admiral Elena Reyes, a woman whose calm demeanor belied the fierce intelligence in her eyes. You seem surprised by our response time, Admiral Reyes noted as I stared at the tactical display showing the massive human armada. My species would need months to organize such a force, I admitted. The Galactic Council took 16 days just to agree on sending our diplomatic mission to you. No offense to your council, Admiral Reyes said, but 16 days of talk while colonies are being devoured seems inefficient. Yet your people unified immediately, I observed. I was led to believe humans were fractious and prone to internal conflict. The Admiral Reyes laughed. Oh, we absolutely are. Right now, there are at least 7 major disagreements about tactical approaches to this mission. The difference is, we are arguing while we fly toward the enemy, not before we leave. This was my first insight into what humans called multitasking, their bizarre ability to pursue multiple courses of action simultaneously. Where most species pondered, deliberated, and then acted, humans seemed to do all three at once, often while also engaging in what they termed idle conversation. "So what is your strategy against the Vexkari?" I asked. "Your fleet is impressive, but the Council lost thousands of advanced warships already." The corners of Admiral Rhea's mouth turned upward slightly. "The Council fought conventionally. We don't plan to do that." "What do you mean?" "You will see at Centauri Hub," she replied cryptically. "Your people are still holding there, correct?" I nodded. "Barely. Our latest intelligence suggests they have perhaps 3 days before the Vexkari main fleet arrives. Then we will be there in 2, she said with absolute certainty. True to her word, the human fleet arrived at Centauri Hub 48 hours later, using FTL drive configurations that our scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. The remaining galactic defense forces greeted the human armada with a mixture of relief and trepidation. Admiral Zex of the Jurgen Collective, the ranking military officer of the combined galactic forces, was visibly stunned when Admiral Reyes and her command staff transported aboard his vessel for a strategy session. "Your ships move unusually," he said, 7 eyes blinking in sequence. "Our sensors had difficulty tracking your approach vectors." "We've made some modifications to standard FTL theory," explained the human chief science officer, Dr. Prisha Patel. "Nothing too complicated, just a matter of artificially inducing quantum superposition in the drive core while simultaneously generating a localized time dilation field." I watched as the galactic military leaders exchanged bewildered glances. These concepts weren't unknown to them, but the casual way humans discussed manipulating the fundamental forces of reality was jarring. "Never mind the technical details," Admiral Reyes interjected. "We need to discuss battle plans. The Vexkari will be here within 24 hours. Admiral Zex gestured to the holographic display showing the approaching enemy fleet. "We've positioned our remaining ships in a standard defense perimeter around the hub. With your forces, we might be able to hold them off long enough for the evacuation to complete." "Evacuation?" Admiral Reyes frowned. "We didn't come here to retreat. The Vexkari fleet outnumbers our combined forces nearly 3-to-1, Zex explained patiently, as if speaking to a tactical novice. "Even with your ships, victory is mathematically impossible." The human General Amara Jackson, commanding their ground forces, stepped forward. "With respect, Admiral Zex, humans have a long history of achieving mathematically impossible victories." "How?" demanded Zex. "By changing the parameters of the equation," replied Dr. Patel with a grin that displayed too many teeth to be reassuring. What followed was the most unconventional battle planning session in the history of galactic warfare. The humans didn't just question established military doctrine, they ignored it entirely. They proposed tactics that ranged from the unorthodox to the seemingly suicidal. And throughout it all, they maintained a bizarre levity, making jokes about pulling a Thermopylae or going full inch on historical references that meant nothing to the galactic officers but seemed to inspire fierce nods of approval among the humans. "This is madness," muttered High Admiral Zex after the humans outlined their primary strategy. Possibly Admiral Reyes conceded. But as a human philosopher once said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Your conventional tactics have failed against the Vexkari 43 times. Perhaps madness is exactly what's called for. The Vexkari arrived precisely when predicted. Their massive world ships, each the size of a small moon, emerged from FTL surrounded by swarms of harvester vessels. I watched from the observation deck of the Phoenix Dawn as the enemy approached, implacable, relentless, and without fear. "Magnificent, aren't they?" said a voice beside me. I turned to find Commander Felix Navarro, the ship's tactical officer, gazing at the enemy with what appeared to be admiration. "You find them beautiful?" I asked, incredulous. "In the way a perfect predator is beautiful," he clarified. They've evolved or engineered themselves into the ultimate consumption machine. No waste, no hesitation, no mercy. And this impresses you? Commander Navarro smiled. It makes them predictable, and predictable enemies can be defeated. As the Vex carry closed in, the human fleet executed maneuvers that defied conventional space combat tactics. Instead of forming a defensive line, they scattered into seemingly random patterns. Small squadrons darted toward the massive Vex carry vessels, only to veer away at the last moment. Others appeared to fly in deliberate patterns that made no tactical sense whatsoever. "What are they doing?" demanded High Admiral Zex over the comm channel. Drawing their attention, Admiral Reyes replied calmly, and mapping their response patterns. For nearly an hour, the human fleet engaged in this bizarre dance, sustaining minimal losses while inflicting negligible damage on the enemy. The galactic forces held their positions as ordered, though their communications betrayed growing confusion and frustration. Then Admiral Reyes gave the order, "Execute Operation Trojan Horse." The scattered human vessels suddenly converged into tight formations. But instead of attacking the Vex carry directly, they targeted specific points in empty space. Hundreds of missiles launched simultaneously, detonating at precisely calculated coordinates. "What are they hitting?" I asked, baffled. "There's nothing there." "Oh, but there is," Commander Navarro replied with evident satisfaction. The Vex carry use quantum entanglement for fleet communication. Those locations are their signal nodes, invisible to conventional sensors, but Dr. Patel's team identified them based on the energy fluctuations during our probing maneuvers. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The perfectly synchronized Vex carry swarm fell into disarray. Ship formations broke apart as individual vessels lost connection with the central command structure. "Now, Phase 2, Admiral Reyes ordered. The human mining and cargo vessels, which had thus far remained at the periphery of the battle, suddenly surged forward. But instead of weapons, they deployed massive electromagnetic nets between them, creating a web that ensnared dozens of the smaller Vex carry ships. "Those aren't combat vessels," I said in confusion. "No, they are salvage ships," Commander Navarro explained. "The Vex carry consume everything? Well, now we are consuming them. Those nets will disrupt their molecular cohesion, essentially turning them into raw materials." "For what purpose?" The answer came in the form of automated human factories that followed behind the salvage ships. As they collected the disrupted Vex carry matter, they began manufacturing missiles. Thousands upon thousands of missiles, using the enemy's own substance against them. "You are weaponizing their biomass," I realized with growing awe. "Poetic, isn't it?" Commander Navarro said. "They wanted to consume us. Instead, we are recycling them." The tide of battle shifted dramatically. The disrupted Vex carry formations struggled to regroup, while the human fleet pressed their advantage with savage efficiency. The missiles crafted from Vex carry matter seemed particularly effective, bypassing the enemy's defensive systems as if they were recognized as friendly. Yet the three largest Vex carry world ships remained unscathed, their massive hulls impervious to conventional attacks. They continued their inexorable advance toward Centauri Hub, adaptive shields absorbing everything thrown at them. "The big ones aren't taking damage," I pointed out, anxiety creeping back into my voice. "We noticed," Admiral Reyes said, joining us on the observation deck. "Time for Phase 3. Commander Navarro, signal the sleight of hand squadron." A small group of human vessels broke from the main fleet and accelerated toward the massive world ships. They were different from the others, sleeker, with minimal weapon systems but oversized engines. "Civilian science vessels," Admiral Reyes explained, noting my questioning look. "Specifically, our top xenobiology research ships." "You are sending researchers into the heart of the battle?" I asked, horrified. "Who better to understand a biological entity than biologists?" She replied. "Watch." The science vessels deployed what appeared to be small probes that attached themselves to the hulls of the world ships. For several long moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then, gradually, the massive Vex-Kari vessels began to slow. "What's happening?" I asked. "Those aren't probes," Admiral Reyes said. "They are genetic resequencers." Dr. Patel's team analyzed the Vex-Kari biological signatures and determined they operate on a hive mind principle with distributed consciousness. Those devices are introducing a modified version of their own genetic code back into their system. "You are reprogramming them?" "More like confusing them," she clarified. "Imagine suddenly having thoughts that aren't your own, impulses that contradict your basic nature. The equivalent of an autoimmune disease on a fleet-wide scale." I watched in astonishment as the mighty world ships began to turn on each other. The largest began consuming its smaller brethren, its harvester arms tearing into the very fleet it had led moments before. "That's horrifying," I whispered. "Yes," Admiral Reyes agreed solemnly. "But so is extinction." The Battle of Centauri Hub lasted another 6 hours, but the outcome was never again in doubt. By the time the last Vex-Kari vessel had been neutralized or captured for study, the combined human galactic fleet had lost less than 15% of their forces, a miracle by any standard. As the victorious armada regrouped, I found myself in a quiet corridor of the Phoenix Dawn, trying to process what I had witnessed. The humans had not merely fought, they had adapted, innovated, and overcome in ways that defied conventional understanding of warfare. "Overwhelming, isn't it?" said a voice. I turned to find Director Maya Quinn, who had joined the fleet from Mars shortly before the battle. "Your people fight like nothing I've ever seen," I admitted. "We don't fight to win battles," she explained. "We fight to survive extinction events. It's encoded in our DNA from thousands of generations of ancestors who refused to die when the odds said they should." "The Galactic Council feared this aspect of humanity," I said. "Your unpredictability, your capacity for violence. Perhaps they were right to quarantine your species." Director Quinn considered this thoughtfully. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they should have feared our absence more than our presence." 3 weeks later, I stood before the Galactic Council chamber once again. But this time, I was not alone. Beside me stood Ambassador O'Malley, representing Earth in an official capacity for the first time in history. "The quarantine of Sol system is hereby officially lifted," declared Prime Counselor Norix. "Humanity has earned its place among the galactic community." The chamber erupted in applause, genuine this time, not the polite political acknowledgement I was accustomed to. As we walked out together, Ambassador O'Malley wore an expression I had come to recognize as contemplative. "You don't seem entirely pleased," I observed. "Acceptance is a double-edged sword," he replied. "Now comes the hard part." "Which is?" "Which is proving we deserve it," he said. "Saving the galaxy from the Vex-Kari was relatively straightforward. They were trying to kill us, so we stopped them. But building lasting peace, contributing to galactic civilization in ways that aren't related to our talent for creative destruction, that's the real challenge." "You are worried you will disappoint us," I realized. "For ourselves," he added. "We have a complicated history, Trazax. For every achievement we celebrate, there's a darker chapter we struggle to reconcile. But that's what makes us human, the constant battle between our best and worst impulses." As our shuttle departed for Earth, where I would establish the first official galactic embassy, I gazed out at the stars with new perspective. The humans had saved us all, yes, but they had done something far more significant in the process. They had reminded the galaxy that survival sometimes requires embracing the very qualities we fear: adaptability, unpredictability, and the willingness to fight beyond the bounds of reason when existence itself is at stake. The Vex-Kari had encountered a universe of species that followed logical, predictable patterns of behavior. Then they met humans, a species that looked at the mathematical certainty of defeat and said, "We disagree with your calculations." Perhaps that was the true lesson of humanity. Not that they were dangerous, although they certainly were, but that they refused to accept limitations, even when those limitations appeared to be fundamental laws of reality. As we approached the blue-green world that had produced such a species, Ambassador O'Malley pointed to the warning beacons we were passing, now deactivated but still in orbit. "You know what's ironic?" he asked. "Those weren't just keeping us in. They were keeping the galaxy out, and sometimes isolation can be the most dangerous quarantine of all." "How so?" I asked. "Because problems rarely improve when ignored," he replied, "and potential allies can't help if you never call them." I thought about the Council's centuries of keeping humanity at arm's length and how close that decision had come to dooming us all. "So what happens now?" I asked. Ambassador O'Malley smiled, a genuine expression of hope that needed no translation across our different biologies. "Now," he said, "we see what happens when the most dangerous species in the galaxy decides to make friends instead of war." As Earth grew larger in our viewport, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The quarantine was over. Humanity had joined the galactic stage. And nothing would ever be the same again.